How efficient is your production facility? When you're asked to revise your facility's layout to increase production, how do you decide what ideas to put forward? How do you know what impact each alternative proposal would have on your facility? Even the most efficient production facilities can hit unexpected bottlenecks when ramping up production. ProModel AutoCAD Edition is used to model, study, and optimize your manufacturing process using your existing AutoCAD layout generated with Autodesk Factory Design utilities. By visualizing and animating your production process directly with AutoCAD, you can better understand how your manufacturing process really works rather than how you've been assuming that it works. By simulating your process, you can optimize production line performance and identify potential bottlenecks before they occur on the factory floor. Using the familiar tools in AutoCAD, ProModel can help you build a digital process model of your facility using your mechanical equipment designs from your Autodesk Factory Design Utilities Asset Library. Assets from your Autodesk Factory Design Utilities Library can be used to define locations where your components will be processed. Entities represent the raw materials or components that will be processed in your facility. Flows determine the order of locations for processing entities, and conveyors can be used to move entities between locations. Resources represent additional equipment, devices, or people that move entities along path networks between locations to support your production line. For example, resources could be allocated for loading and unloading components, quality checking, or maintenance. In this example, we're working with an existing production line layout modeled in AutoCAD. Using ProModel AutoCAD Edition, we've defined how our components will move through the facility on their journey from raw material to the finished product. Using the ProModel toolset, we'll run a baseline simulation to ensure that our model reflects our facility's current output. The animated simulation runs directly with AutoCAD and helps us to visualize our current production line process to better understand how it's functioning. When the simulation is complete, the ProModel Output Viewer allows us to build a dashboard of reports from the simulation analytics to focus on the metrics that suit our business goals. In our example, our business has asked us to grow production by 40% over the coming year. Using the ProModel toolset, it's a simple step to add alternative scenarios to our simulation and rerun the analytics to compare our proposed alternatives with the current baseline. Starting with our baseline analytics, we can see that our current production line hits a bottleneck at the thread cutting machine, which is 100% utilized, preventing our production line from increasing output. But this doesn't worry us, because we can now use our process model to compare upgrades to the production line to find out the most cost-effective way to remove the production line bottleneck and meet the uplift in output. In our example, the bottleneck is at the thread cutting machine. But what's the cause of the bottleneck? To answer this question, we can compare the addition of an extra thread cutting machine with the addition of an extra worker or the addition of both. Our baseline report shows us that the thread cutting machine is 100% utilized. What would happen if we increase the number of parts we can make at the thread cutting location by adding a second thread cutting machine? We can see that the output from the thread cutting machines is steadily building, but overall finished components have actually gone down. What's the story here? If we look at our thread cutting location, we can see that it is now idle 50% of the time. So perhaps the bottleneck isn't the machines at all. Looking at our resources, we can see the pre-assembly worker is nearly 100% utilized. Perhaps the worker can't keep up with the supply of parts from the thread cutting station. What would happen if we added an additional pre-assembly worker instead of an additional thread cutting machine? With a single thread cutting machine and 2 pre-assembly workers, production increases from 220 parts to 228. We can see that the thread cutter output buffer is empty nearly 50% of the time. This means that downstream production isn't receiving enough components. Our pre-assembly workers are now only 50% utilized, but our thread cutting machine is still running at 100% capacity. So the pre-assembly workers are clearing the parts from the thread cutting machine output faster than they can be produced, and now the thread cutting machine is our bottleneck. Our final scenario compares the addition of both an extra thread cutting machine and an extra worker. We can see that the workers can steadily clear the buffer of both thread cutting machines, increasing the throughput from 222 to 317 total exits. This is an increase of 43%, well over the 40% target. In this case, we find that the optimal solution is to add both an extra worker and a new thread cutting machine to remove the bottleneck and increase production to meet our target. Not only do we have an answer to our problem, but we have the analytics to demonstrate how we found the solution and make our case to management for a new hire and capital expenditure to meet our desired production target. After optimizing your process, open your 2D AutoCAD layout in Autodesk Inventor to generate an accurate 3D model of your production line. The bidirectional sync between AutoCAD and Autodesk Inventor automatically converts the 2D AutoCAD layout into a 3-dimensional model, helping you to coordinate physical clashes between the process line equipment and the building envelope. Additionally, these same 3D models generated inside of Autodesk Inventor can be used to create an interactive 3D process simulation with a single click. You can zoom, pan and rotate, all while the simulation is playing to gain a deeper understanding of the design intent and more clearly communicate with stakeholders. In Autodesk Navisworks, your 3D model can now be combined with your project schedule to plan and simulate the installation process of your new or revised production line, helping to prevent on-site delays and reducing the need for contingency budgets. Digitize your production facility and turn change from a risk into an opportunity by planning, validating and optimizing your production facility with the Autodesk Factory Design utilities in the Product Design and Manufacturing Collection and ProModel AutoCAD Edition.